What I've seen in a lot of cases, a lot of hotels, is that owners or leadership people tend to choose their friends and family to work in positions, key positions, instead of people who are capable. You choose someone you trust versus you choose someone who is capable. And I think we have to choose someone who is capable to do the job, not only someone that you can trust, because trust doesn't get you anywhere. A capable person executes the job for you flawlessly. I've seen many existing hotels who have done really, really well over the past years. And then suddenly the sales drop. This is a classic, right? I'm doing well already, so I don't have to do anything else. This is the classic Nokia problem. Hi, my name is Adrian, and welcome to the Vision Impossible podcast, where we talk about everything relating to hospitality. Now, recently, someone asked us this question: Adrian, why do hotels fail, or why don't they do well? So, based on our experience, we have actually consulted for over 81 hotels. And based on all those hotels that we've consulted for, we sort of streamlined and found out a few points on why hotels fail. And I'd like to share them with you. So, there are some fundamental reasons why hotels fail, regardless of whether you're a new hotel or an existing hotel. And one of the most important points of why hotels fail is because people make decisions based on data of one. What it means is that a lot of times you'll notice leaderships. How do they make decisions? They make decisions when they meet a friend over drinks, and then they sit down, or maybe over lunch, and then they have a casual conversation, right? And they talk about, what's doing well now? And then somebody comes up with the idea, hey, in this hotel, if you do this, you'll do very well. My friend also does it. And immediately the person said, really? Is that true? All right, I'm going to do it also. Goes back and executes it, asks the hotel to do it. That's something very common, especially with ownerships, right? Owners of hotels, they tend to listen to feedback of their friends, which is typically what we call data of one. Now, when you make a decision, you cannot just make a decision based on one person's feedback during lunch, dinner, or drinks. You need to sort of ask a wider pool of people whether is it really true. Then only would you be able to make a good decision. So this is regardless of whether you're a new hotel or an existing hotel. If you make decisions based on data of one, you always make the wrong decision. So that's one of the reasons why hotels fail. Number two is what we call micromanagement by the leadership. And I've seen many situations where the leadership really micromanages everything. Now, how do you know whether you're micromanaging? You ask yourself this question, and especially if you're leaders or owners. There's a lot of the decisions in the hotel, or especially day-to-day operations. Do you make the decision, or do your leaders or team make the decision? If you are making most of the decision, definitely you're micromanaging. And some of you may argue, but Adrian, if I don't micromanage, they won't be able to operate, or they don't get what's supposed to be done. That may be true. The reason of that is because you're selecting the wrong person. And that brings me to point number three. What I've seen in a lot of cases, a lot of hotels, is that owners or leadership people tend to choose their friends and family to work in positions, key positions, instead of people who are capable. And it's very apparent in Malaysia. Just because you're a friend, or I studied with you in the same university, or because you're a relative, or because you're a family member, I tend to put you in this role. That's how things fall apart, because it's somehow the common practice that you choose someone you trust versus you choose someone who's capable. And I think we have to choose someone who's capable to do the job, not only someone that you can trust, because trust doesn't get you anywhere. A capable person executes the job for you flawlessly. So it's very important to choose the right person. So the next time, if you want to have your family members do a certain thing, or a friend, you can, as long as they are capable of doing it. If not, it's going to be an absolute disaster. The fourth point is actually called indecision. What we've seen is that a lot of decisions has to be made. And when leaderships do not make decisions, it gets bottled up, and it balloons and nothing gets done. You may ask, why is there indecision? The reason why there's indecision, it goes back to the point of empowerment. Maybe that particular manager or GM is not empowered to make the decision. So they actually don't make decisions and end up, everything has to go through a higher level of authority. And that person obviously is overwhelmed by so many decisions having to be made, and everything just doesn't move forward. So these are fundamental reasons why a hotel fails. And point number 5 is about having a business plan. And having a business plan or a blueprint or a marketing plan. Different hotels have different names for it. It's so crucial that it's amazing that how some hotels don't really have a business plan. A business plan is a plan of where the company wants to go through for this year. What are their goals they want to achieve, not only financially, but how do they want to develop their team. Now, business plan, right? I've seen a lot of business plan. A lot of times it's only about revenue. That's the very interesting thing, right? It's about revenue, revenue, revenue. But it doesn't cover two important components of it. One, which is called the people development. Now, your people are the magicians that make the magic happen. If you don't invest in them, they are unable to perform. Number three talks about the customer experience. I think I've seen a lot of business plan, and very, very few hotels spend time or put in a section for customer experience. And that means, for example, putting flowers at the lobby, putting a scent, making customers feel warm and welcome. What are the touch points that we can improve on? Or when they check in, we'll write a nice card. When they check out, we'll put a nice card, or we'll send something back to them, or we'll give them a small gift upon arrival. These are little things that sort of improve the guest experience. So a business plan must constitute of these three things, which is the financial part of it, the people development part of it, and the customer experience part of it. So these are the 5 points that I've seen are the core reasons why hotels don't do well. And next, I'd like to move to a little bit about if it's existing hotels. I've seen many existing hotels who have done really, really well over the past years. And then suddenly the sales drop. So when we go in and learn and sort of see why a hotel that's doing so well suddenly drops in their sales. And we've come to these 3 points on why. One, this is a classic, right? I'm doing well already, so I don't have to do anything else. This is the classic Nokia problem. If you remember, some of us who were born slightly in the 90s, you remember Nokia being a very popular phone. Every single one had a Nokia phone. It was like everyone had a Nokia phone. They were doing so well that they felt invincible. But just like the famous saying, even Rome fell to its knees. And I think a hotel that feels that they're doing well already and they don't need to do anything else, that's actually very dangerous. Because then they lose focus on what needs to really be done, and they become complacent, and they don't innovate, and things starts to go down. Now, for existing hotels, this is so important, because once you go down, it's very hard to come up again. It's very, very hard. Number two, dated product. If your product is old, dated, and it needs refurbishment, needs a fresh coat of paint, and you say, I'll do it when my sales improve. It's not going to happen. 100% is not going to happen. Your sales will never improve, because people stay in hotels to experience new products. They don't pay for a dated hotel, right? So I can safely say confidently that any hotel which is dated and has the phrase that when my sales is better, I will renovate and refurbish, they will never be able to recover. They will always keep going down and probably stay at a poor performing level. So the other point I'd like to make is that relates a lot about cost. So when you talk about cost, there are 3 types of costs that we'll look at. One, which is called cost cutting. The second is actually called cost efficiency. And the third one is called cost effectiveness. So I'll cover these 3 points of cost. So a lot of times people would say the decision would be to do cost cutting, right? And what does cost cutting mean? Cost cutting means to say that, let me give you an example of what it is. It's like the removal of flowers in the hotel lobby. That's cost cutting. Means you reduce the entire output or expenses of the hotel. Another example will be to freeze all hiring. But the consequence of that is that if you remove flowers in the lobby, the experience is no longer there. The warm feeling or the welcome feeling is no longer there. So a lot of times when hotels, they do cost cutting, they don't measure the impact of the experience, but they only measure the cost of it. What it means is that they will measure, okay, if I put flowers, then it costs me X amount. So what I'll do in order to maximize my revenue is to cut costs. And cut costs means remove flowers. And remove flowers means reduction of the experience. The other part when it comes to freeze of hiring or freeze of promotions or freeze of incentives, when you freeze manpower, you see, manpower is actually plan. You know, in a whole organizational chart, you have a certain allocated person for a purpose and they're there for a reason to do something, right? And when you freeze all of these, you cannot expect that the same output of experience is there. Therefore, you do not do cost cutting unless you are faced with a major crisis. If it's COVID-19, if it's a major crisis, it's a halt, no one is traveling, you do cost cutting. But beyond these situations, you don't do cost cutting. So that's number one. The second one is actually called the cost efficiency. Cost efficiency means that you still do the same things, but you find an alternative or a cheaper alternative to it. So for example, going back to the flower example, you still have flowers, but you find a cheaper alternative to it. That may result in a different flower being placed at the lobby. You still have flowers, but it's a different form of flower. In terms of hiring, you instead of perhaps hiring a manager, you hire a supervisor. You do the same thing, you still hire, but you find a cheaper alternative to it. And the consequence to that is that you may not exactly get the exact output that you want. So that's the difference between cost cutting. Cost cutting means totally cut. Cost efficiency means you find a cheaper alternative. But cost effectiveness talks about measuring the output of it. So let me give you an example of what cost effectiveness means. Cost effectiveness means that, we've sort of came across a hotel, and you know, usually hotels, there's something called an energy saving switch, where you put in the key card and then you have electricity, and if you remove it, everything shuts off. And one of the reasons they didn't install that energy saving switch was because that obviously it cost a certain investment amount, and it was for all rooms, it's going to cost a little bit, and they decided not to do it. But the consequence to that was that the electricity bill was extremely high, because obviously when guest goes in and checks into the room, they're not going to switch off the electricity. They're just going to leave everything on, right? Aircon, lights and everything running. And that indirectly caused the electricity bill to be very high. So this was actually called cost cutting. What could have been done is to actually install an energy saving switch, which will probably cost you a little bit more upfront, but towards the end, you probably save a lot on the electricity bill. And long term, I mean, you save 1 month, in a year you save so much money. And that energy saving switch typically lasts about a good, I think 10 years, quite safely 10 years. You don't have to replace them. So that's an example of cost effectiveness. So when you put flowers in the lobby, for example, you measure what is the impact of it. Putting the flowers, does it create that kind of experience for the customer? If not, then I will enhance it. Because what you want to do is to create that welcome feeling for the guests. If you're hiring a candidate, you try to look for the right candidate so that the person delivers the best experience to your guests, not a total cut. So these are one of the reasons why sometimes hotels, they confuse between cost cutting, cost efficiency, and cost effectiveness. And more often than not, they actually jump on the point of cost cutting, which is a total reduction of everything. So if you or any hotels were to cost cut, most of the time, it will lead to the hotel's failure in the long term or the long run. If you move on to new hotels, there are fundamentally 3 reasons why. One, my hotel is new, so everyone is going to try us. That's not the right answer. Regardless of whether your hotel is new or not, it doesn't mean that people will stay in your hotel. You may think that so, but we have done enough pre-opening of hotels to safely tell you that if you start up a hotel and if it's brand new and you feel that people will stay with us because we're new, that's wrong. People won't do that. Number 2, poor marketing and awareness. I think that relates to point number 1 also, because my hotel is new, I don't have to do marketing. Marketing is just a waste of money. I'll just put up on certain platforms and they'll be able to see. It doesn't work that way. It's a very loud world right now. Everyone's trying to gain people's attention. And marketing is a way for you to tell people that, look, I've got this product, come and try us, check us out, right? If you don't do that, nobody's going to know. Point number 3, there's a lot of focus on hardware, a lot. I've got the best tiles, I spend the most money, I had the most expensive interior designer, my architect comes from a European famous designer. Those are important things. Very important things. But what people always forget is the software. And the software is not just about the people, it's about the output of it. Example, beautiful hotel, great service, but then they use subpar food items, cheap ingredients, especially food, right? I notice a lot of luxury hotels, whenever they try to become cost efficient, or they try very hard not to cut costs, or they try very hard to have a good margin. And they do that by serving food using not very good ingredients. Now, the world has changed. People are well informed. And if you do that, they can tell. And nobody's going to pay you an amount of obscene amount of money if you're going to serve them subpar, cheap ingredients, foods cooked by cheap ingredients. They know. So the focus on hardware has to shift not only on one angle. I mean, you don't only focus on hardware, you need to focus on software too. And software means your people and your outputs like food, experiences, right? That has to be done. So these are the reasons why hotels fail. We have the fundamental reasons, whether your new hotel or existing hotels. One, if you make decisions based on data of one, that's going to be a disastrous one. Two, micromanagement. Three, positioning of people, choosing your friends and families or people you trust versus people who are capable. Four, indecision. Five, you talk about no business plan. So whether your new hotel or existing hotel, this affects you. If you do these five things, obviously your hotel will fail. In an existing hotel, you do nothing because you're already doing well. Two, dated product. Three, cost cutting versus cost efficiency. And of course, the new hotels, that will be, my hotel is new, so people will come. Two, poor marketing and awareness. Three, focus on hardware alone. So I really hope that these points make you sort of understand why and helps you so that you can navigate and perhaps don't make these mistakes or your hotel will start failing. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode.